Hello, my name's Clive Thompson. I've been investing money for about 50 odd years now. I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't make as many mistakes as I used to, and I'm here to share with you some of my wisdom about stock market investing through stories and techniques, and I hope they will help you to make more money and make less mistakes and become a great stock market investor. My aim in doing this is to help people secure their own financial future. The story today is a true story. It's one of the greatest stock market speculations of all time, and it's not from the dot-com bubble. This is the story of a stock which went from 3 cents to $280 within months. It's a wild story of speculation and insider trading. Now, I was 13 years old when I visited my grandfather in hospital. My mother took me, and he had an old exercise book, tattered at the edges, and it was filled with handwritten columns of numbers, stock names, prices, values, and every single day had a new page. Every single day, the numbers changed. This was 1970. There were no spreadsheets yet, but my grandfather created his own system, tracking his own portfolio by hand, watching his wealth rise and fall with each market close. I was mesmerized. But then my grandfather said something to me which haunted me for the rest of my life. It was one word: Poseidon. Now, his eyes lit up when he said it. He was very excited. Now, I'd never heard of something called Poseidon. As far as I knew, Poseidon was a Greek god, the god of the sea with a trident in his hand. But my grandfather was talking about a stock. He was talking about Poseidon Nickel, an Australian company in Adelaide. I didn't know that at the time. I now know. I've looked up the story. Poseidon Nickel was nothing special. The stock was trading at about 3 cents. And like many similar companies in the mining sector, it was burning through cash, hoping to find something of value. Then Norman Shearlaw stepped into Poseidon. He injected the capital that Poseidon needed, and he became the largest shareholder. He hired some geologists to survey the land. What they found changed everything. Mount Windara wasn't just a mountain. It was a mountain made of nickel. 3.56% pure nickel, they said. Poseidon was sitting on a gold mine, or should I say a nickel mine, literally. The insiders heard the story first. Whispers were spreading and the share price started to rise. The geologists talked. The chairman of the Perth Stock Exchange got wind of it and bought some. So in early September, those shares trading at 3 cents. By 26th of September, on the back of the rumors alone, had doubled to $1.85. And then came September the 29th, 1969. Poseidon officially announced the nickel discovery. The market exploded. The news ignited a frenzy of buying. On that day alone, the shares jumped from $1.85. The shares jumped to $5.50. The next day, they reached $7. And a few days later, on October the 1st, 1969, Poseidon made a more detailed announcement, and the shares soared to $12.30. Of course, some of the insiders might have been lightening up on their shares. If they did, they were a little bit too early, because by mid-December, a month later, the shares were nearly $100. Then came the annual general meeting of December 19th. Now, nobody knows what was said at that general meeting, but there were probably a lot of whispers. On that day alone, the shares soared 30% from just below $100 to $130. And the next day, they went up another 40%, reaching $175. The newspapers were full of the stories of this amazing mountain of gold, and everybody who read the story thought that somehow they were the first one to hear it and they were the early bird. People were dreaming of the money they were going to make buying the shares. Now, I don't to this day know if my grandfather ever bought any of those shares in Poseidon. If he did, he kept very stum about it. But I do remember how ecstatic he was. He was talking about the potential, the sheer scale of the find. He'd point to the numbers, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of it. He said something like, "Clive, this is what opportunity looks like. It's like finding gold, but it's nickel, and the world needs it more than ever." And of course, that was true, because at the time, America was in the 15th year of its war with Vietnam, and they needed a lot of nickel for the weapons. The biggest nickel mining company in Canada was on strike, and the nickel price was trading at all-time records. Of course, as the shares in Poseidon rose, there were many lookalikes who started to appear. These nickel companies started to appear like mushrooms in the night. For example, one company was called Tazimex. The shares went from $2.80 to $16.80 within 2 days after there was a rumor circulating that they had found some nickel in one of their core samples. Then, a few days later, there was an interview with the chairman of the company, and whatever he said caused the shares to jump to $96. That was within 3 days of the start of the rumor, from when the price was only $2.80. Like many other companies which had floated on the stock exchange, Tazimex never actually found any nickel. Another company which floated at 50 cents, called Samin, saw its shares rocket from the 50 cents to $30 on the opening day of trading. On the back of these kinds of gains, mining companies were appearing everywhere. By mid-December 1969, Poseidon shares were trading at $200 a share. The entire Australian stock market was swept up in the excitement, with the stock indices hitting all-time highs. London investors could also trade Australian stocks, and they were getting in on the game. Everyone, it seemed, wanted a piece of Poseidon. Along the way, the newspapers were adding petrol to the fire. Newspapers, always in search of hot news, published stories of fortunes made in Poseidon shares. One such story, published by the Canberra Times, was about a Harrods shop assistant in London who made $140,000 from Poseidon shares. Within a few months, by February 1970, the shares hit their all-time high of $280. That was just a few months after the story of the nickel find broke. The end came as quickly as it had begun. The nickel price fell, and the quantity of nickel inside Windara turned out to be much less than the original geological report had found. By 1976, Poseidon had run out of cash, and it went into receivership. Today, the Windara nickel mines are abandoned. They're empty, silent. They're just a monument to the greed and speculation of mankind. And there is my story of Poseidon. If there's any message I want to deliver to you, it's to beware of speculation. Don't chase the hottest thing. Try and find something where you're truly alone. If you're alone, there's a chance the speculators will follow you in, but do not follow the speculators. You might find they are selling to you and you're the last one. So you may find that you are the bag holder.